Hello, everyone. Just want to see if there's anyone joining. Just to introduce myself, my name is Shaun Burrow. I'm the CEO of DEMARS. We're a technology partner for financial institutions. We build money apps for multi-currency payments, tokenized micro savings, and a few other use cases. I'm speaking to you now from Port Alfred in the South African East Coast. Normally based in Mauritius, where we have been for the last few years and where our company is based, but I got stuck here in March and have been stuck ever since. So how much the world has changed in the last few months. I'm going to talk to you today about big tech, its perceived threat to financial institutions in Africa, and talk about a few ways that financial institutions can win. So this talk is very much geared towards people that are in the financial services industry already. We've got about 10 minutes to discuss the topic, but if you've got any questions, please feel free to email me. My email address is at the end of the presentation, and I will get back to you as soon as I can on that. So big tech, it's definitely no secret that big tech, the Amazon, Apples, Alphabets of this world, especially the big US technology companies, are expanding their existing financial services businesses and building and investing in new businesses across the globe. Sub-Saharan Africa being no exception. In fact, they actually don't have any choice. To justify their high stock valuations, they have to grow into new sectors, financial services being one of them. These companies have so much data on us. I'm sure that any lender would love to know what they do. It's also so much easier to underwrite insurance clients. Of the big tech from an African context, Facebook has been particularly aggressive. And for many of us, Facebook equals the internet, and WhatsApp is a go-to digital tool for all communication. And Facebook has come out obviously with its Libra cryptocurrency and WhatsApp Pay, which are particularly interesting from an African context. But let's not forget about big tech from the East. They're well ahead of the curve in terms of adoption in their home countries. And there are some interesting innovations in the hardware space, with new phones from brands such as Samsung being shipped with pre-installed private keys for better security when transacting on distributed ledgers. And while we're talking about big tech, they're not the only ones. Everyone wants in. Mobile network operators have been in the game in Africa for a long time, and they're expanding. Those that have failed are trying again. Retailers and post offices are all offering services previously only available at banks. And let's not forget the fintech companies or neo and challenger banks, the so-called disruptors. And I'll ask you, who would really want to be a regulator in this space? You certainly couldn't pay me enough money to work for one of them. There are just so many things to consider. The biggest thing to consider at the moment is obviously central bank digital currencies. With the ECB coming out just in the last week that they are definitely progressing with the development of one. And it just makes so much sense. Digital currencies are actually far more traceable than cash. And for a central bank, you reduce the cost of printing, storage, and transport that is associated with cash. And how do these regulators deal with the fact that stability of the financial system is so important, and yet they also need to consider inclusivity? So it's good to have a competitive environment, but you also need to have a stable environment. And also peer-to-peer cryptocurrencies. I mean, from an African context at least, the volumes have gone through the roof on the peer-to-peer exchanges, primarily because of the lack of trust in some contexts, and currency controls create arbitrage opportunities. And these can be perceived and may become, at some stage, a systemic risk to the whole system. But with all these different players and all these different technologies coming into play, who can we trust? I mean, consumers have more choice than ever. But in financial services, trust is the most important thing. And trust is not automatic. I mean, I'm from a generation that's stuck in the middle. My parents and grandparents trusted the humans they dealt with and the big brands that they represented, whilst my younger employees and my children don't want to deal with people. They are influenced and then execute themselves. Does this mean that face-to-face sales will soon be dead? COVID-19 has certainly sped up digitization, and certain services such as payments and general insurance are rapidly commoditizing and margins are falling. So there is no doubt that there's still a place for an agency model, and especially in certain niches. Face-to-face will not die. And contrary to perception, a lot of big tech's revenues are actually very reliant on agents. And as they expand their financial services businesses, these agents may very well be smaller regional financial institutions that already have trust, or new entrants. But can big tech be trusted? And will consumers and regulators trust them? Consumers? Most probably, as these companies are geniuses at creating great user experiences. But regulators? Not so much. And Facebook's Libra is a great example because it still has not got off the ground, as regulators and policymakers are not going to hand over control over the money supply to private businesses. So as a takeaway, I think fierce nationalization and concerns over the sovereignty of each country's monetary policy mean that regulators will no doubt be extremely reluctant to grant licenses to big tech. Brazil is a great example where WhatsApp payments only lasted 1 week before it got blocked by the central bank. Partnerships. Partnerships are key. Watch out for big partnerships between big tech and big banks. They're natural partners. Integrations are just as important as partnerships. And each bank I speak to at the moment is investing in banking as a service platforms. They're upgrading their core banking platforms or implementing middleware to deploy open APIs if they haven't already done so. There is a huge opportunity for smaller, more nimble incumbents to leverage these platforms. I mean, for example, we're busy looking at an emerging fintech company who are leveraging WhatsApp for a cross-border payment solution. And we all use big tech's cloud and mobile infrastructure to bridge the divide between legacy systems and public distributed networks. We're doing this on a day-to-day basis. The technology is actually the easy part. And I think a lot of us don't understand that there aren't these huge costs that there used to be to actually deploy a lot of this technology. And there are so many open source technologies there that have made it possible to deliver new services within weeks. So to come in and do the technology part is not the difficult part. However, you can't win with the technology. In order to win, the key is user experience. We live in an era of instant gratification. So if your user experience as a financial service provider is not amazing, you'll quickly lose all your customers. So it's so easy for new people to come in, and there are so many big players out there already. And then secondly, the ability to navigate regulatory uncertainty, or at least perceived regulatory uncertainty. There's a lot of spin around needing new regulations for technology, but ultimately it's all about the service and what service is being delivered. And in majority of cases, there are already existing laws and regulations that govern these. So it's not about the tech, it's about the service that's being delivered and how to navigate and communicate with the regulators so that the regulators can understand that. And then lastly, in order to win, you've got to be prepared to partner. Be technically and strategically prepared for those integrations and partnerships. So to summarize, I feel that the emergence of big tech in financial services brings far more opportunities than it brings threats, as it may ultimately lower the playing fields for all. I think that's my time slot. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop me an email. My email address is there, Shaun@demars.io. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.